podcast which you are about to see is an account of the tragedy which befell a group of 5 youths, in particular, Alan Danziger and his obnoxious interviewer, Chunky. It is all the more tragic that they were young. But had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see such mad and macabre as they were to see that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon conversation became a nightmare. The events of that day were to lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre pods in the annals of American history, the Creature Features Podcast.
Greetings, fellow insomniacs, and welcome to a very special episode of the Creature Features Podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And I just wanted to say happy Texas Chainsaw Massacre Day, you guys. And to celebrate the day, I have a huge honor on my hands, a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor to sit with one of the stars of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I want to talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I'd also really like to get to know more about the man behind the fancy t-shirt and the driver of the van in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge honor and a pleasure for me to say, Mr. Alan Danziger, how are you doing today, my man?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm just glad at this age that I'm above ground, you know.
Hey, that's all of us this year. It's been a wild year. So being above ground is a pleasure for all of us.
And that I'm not drooling or in diapers at this point.
Lackadaisically swinging a sledgehammer.
The funny thing is, I was at the farmer's market here in Austin, and I was sitting with some of the people that I know that have some of the, one guy does fish, another does meat, and I'm wearing this shirt, and a real pretty lady said, "Man, I love that T-shirt." And I said, "Have you seen the movie?" She said, "It's my favorite movie." And I said, "Well, I was the driver," and she went nuts. She was just so delighted, that I'm still alive, I guess. And so it's that kind of response that I get, wherever I go in conversation when people find out who I am. I mean, just a smile comes on their face. They're just tickled. Even if they've not seen the movie, they know about the movie.
Absolutely. It's one of the most iconic horror films in the history of horror. It's up there with things like Frankenstein, Dracula, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Leatherface are the Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman of their era. And to be a part of that has to be amazing. And to be able to know that that's something that you always have in your back pocket, it's got to be a feather in your cap.
Well, it'll be in my pocket whether I'm up above ground or underneath. It'll be there long after we're gone. And so, I mean, that's I guess something special that I can say. We did it. When we did it, we didn't have any idea. I didn't even think the movie was going to come out, to be honest with you, because they were changing it. It's one of those things, I guess, lightning in a bottle. You never know what can happen, and the movie has just taken on a life of its own, and it's continuing on. And there's been a number of sequels, but when people still compare it to the original, we come out as the original.
Yeah, smelling like roses.
Yeah.
But I want to talk to you a little bit about your life before the whirlwind that is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So you worked as a social worker?
Yeah, yeah. When I went to, well, just to give background, I'm from the Bronx. I'm a kid from the Bronx. I went to the Bronx High School of Science.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people won't even know what I'm talking about, but my best friend at the Bronx High School of Science that I met was a fellow by the name of Stokely Carmichael, and he started the Black Power movement and whatnot. And he was just a middle class kid. I mean, he was just a terrific kid. And because our names, he was Carmichael, I was Danziger, so we were got good buddies, and until we graduated. Mm-hmm. And I went to City College, and I think he went to what's a black college.
There's a couple.
I'm blocking on it, but
yeah, same. And I'm black, so it's weird that I'm blanking on it.
But anyway, and he's featured in the movie Klansman, Black Klansman, the Spike Lee movie.
Oh, nice.
And he was like Martin Luther King. He was right beside him, for many years. So he was a terrific guy, and I was so proud of what he ended up doing. But anyway, I was sitting after Bronx High School of Science. I went to City College, and I was studying psychology, and I was graduating, and I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And I remembered it was a kind of a bleak day. I was sitting in the library, and a fellow by the name of Roland Chabot. With a name like that, you got to be successful. And he said, "Alan, why are you so down?" And I said, "I'm graduating. I don't know what I want to do. I want to be what I want to be." And he said, "Well, you're in psychology. You're studying psychology." He said, "UT has a new psychology department. Why don't you apply there?" And so I said, "Gee, I don't know. I've never been on a horse. I've never been in a posse. I don't know anything about, Texas." But lo and behold, I got accepted and ended up coming to Texas, and I got a couple of master's degrees, one in psychology, one in social work. And then as I was doing work in social work, I met a couple by the name of David and Amy. And that was the start of Toby's first career, which was a movie called Eggshells.
In the midst of sassafras, many things will come to pass, and the smoke shall rise again to the place above where it began.
And it was essentially about this couple and the house that they were living in that seemed to be haunted and whatnot. So it was kind of like a psychedelic, hippy-dippy, type of movie. And they asked if they could shoot a scene with me. At the time I was married, and I have a parrot, I think, in the movie.
So the parrot in the movie is your parrot?
Yeah. And my son is like 8 months old.
And the baby in the movie is your baby?
Yeah. So we shot the scene, and then they kept adding stuff for me to be in. I guess they like how I came across. And if you remember, there's a scene actually where we go into the house, and he's wearing like an Uncle Sam hat.
Yeah.
And Kim Hinkle, who wrote Chainsaw along with Toby, he starts reading poetry, to me. And I'm looking around like, what the hell is this guy doing? And that's where I uttered the line, "Are you talking to me?" And I said that line 7 years before Robert De Niro, said that line in Taxi Driver. And to this day, I feel like they took that line from me. And at some point, I'm still hoping that I'll get somebody to take it on, pro bono, Sonny Bono, or something, to say, this guy said it ahead of, way before anybody did, but not to be. But anyway, it was a lot of fun with that movie. And again, that movie comes out. Nobody saw that movie. It got tangled up in legal stuff, which is what happened even, the Chainsaw.
It's an interesting film, too, because you see Toby's visual style playing out in that film.
He was brilliant. You see the brilliance of this guy.
And especially the scene with the balloons, that is an amazing scene. But you're in this one sequence where there's like a bunch of people going up and down. They're coming down the stairwell, and you're like in the hallway. But the framing of that shot is the framing from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like if you're a Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan, the second you see that, you're like, oh, and it's fascinating because watching that film, it is very psychedelic, and it is talking about, the gender roles in a relationship in a very kind of far out way. And I have to assume that that's kind of the conversations that you guys were having at that period of time. You're a college student in the 60s, in this really kind of tumultuous time period. Like, bring me into that world. I want to know kind of what your guys' worldview was in that period of time while you're making Eggshells, what it is that you guys are like trying to say, what it is you as a person is, or as an artist is trying to say.
Well, you see, there's I think it was the biggest demonstration, anti-war demonstration against Vietnam. I mean, that's at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And just as a side note, when it's your time, it's your time. When it's not, I was riding down that street, Guadalupe, which is right where the campus is, at the same time that Charles Whitman was killing people from the tower.
God.
And
I
I just had gotten a check cashed at Raymond's, and I was on my motor scooter, and a cop started screaming at me, get the hell off the street. I had no idea. And he was killing people right beside me, and I'm on a motor scooter, so wide open. He had the whole town locked up.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It wasn't my time.
Yeah.
This was in 60, I think 67. So it was even before Eggshells.
Yeah.
But as they kept bringing us into the different scenes. It was just something. But the movie comes out, nobody sees the movie. I don't hear anything. And then like 4 years later, I get a call, and I don't even remember if it was Toby or Kim.
Mm.
Alan, we wrote this movie. We'd like you to play this part. I guess Jerry, the wiseacre, van driver. And they gave me the script. I went home, I read it. I was mesmerized.
This is the movie that Rex Reed called the most horrifying motion picture I have ever seen. This film is positively ruthless in its attempt to drive you right out of your mind. It accomplishes everything it sets out to do with brilliance and unparalleled terror.
Franklin!
This is the horror movie to end them all.
Sally, I hear something. Stop. Stop.
This is the movie Rex Reed called the most horrifying motion picture I have ever seen. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from New Line Cinema.
I mean, it read so quickly, and I said, I'm happy to do it. And they were very nice. They worked around at my schedule. At that time, I was doing social work, and I was running a camp for kids with emotional and mental disabilities and stuff like that. It was summertime, and they were really nice. They worked around my schedule. So I think I had the easiest time. I didn't have to spend much time in that house.
You dodged a lot of bullets just by the time in which you go out in the film.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, the rotting bones and Gunner's costume wore the same costume for weeks. So, as I said, all the Febreze in the world couldn't get the stench out of what was going on.
Yeah. So being somebody that worked with Toby on 2 separate films, I've had conversations with some of the actors within the film, Terry McMahon, but I've heard stories about his approach as a filmmaker. You speaking personally as somebody that had worked with him on 2 separate occasions, what do you feel his style and approach was? And do you think that it was misrepresented because he came off as abrasive to certain people?
Like I said, I met him in a social situation.
Mm-hmm.
And he was always very nice to me, and kind. I've heard opposite, and there was, drugs during that time, and I think that probably, influenced it, not in a good way.
Of course.
His legacy, but he kind of knew what he wanted. There wasn't really a lot of direction except if you were just way off, off the page and whatnot, and it just, I think he knew what he wanted and he let it unfold. I mean, in some ways we were kept separate.
Mm-hmm.
During making the movie, I never saw Leatherface. In fact, I'm number 8 as the all-time screams when the actor didn't know what the hell was going to happen to him. And I know I'm jumping around, but in fact, that scene, if you see how it's shot, it's at the end of the day, the sun is setting, I'm going toward the house, I'm yelling Kirk and stuff like that. But I said, I want to be blindfolded, while you're setting up the scene for me. I want to be able to react to, which is my real reaction to seeing Leatherface for the first time. So it's like my nod, as I say, to the Stanislavski method. I didn't even know what that method was, but I like the term.
Yeah.
And so they blindfolded me for about 20 minutes. So I'm already worked myself into a lather or a tizzy.
Yeah.
And they yell action. And so I go into the house, you see the bones, you see all this stuff. You get into the kitchen. There's the hook. There's the freezer. The freezer pops up. She comes up. And then I see Leatherface for the first time. And I totally freaked. And I just started screaming. And I ran out of the house. And, Gunnar yells, cut. Toby yells, cut. Comes over, puts his arm around me. He said, Alan, that's one of the best screams I've ever heard. But you got to wait for him to come into the frame, And so even knowing that, I still was freaked out for several more takes. And then finally, 2 of the guys, the grips, got behind me and pulled me down by my loop belts.
Yeah.
Just as that hammer is coming down, they pulled me down.
So when you had even said this already, that when you're working on this, you're just like, this is something I'm doing. I can't imagine there's any part of your brain that said, one day, 51 years from now, I'm going to be sitting with some fat guy on the internet and he's going to be asking me questions about this thing I did over like a couple of weekends when I was...
Not only that, how do I address you? What do I call you?
You can call me Chunky. You can call me Larry.
Just don't call you late for supper, right?
Yeah, just don't call me late for supper. Yes, exactly.
The thing is, Toby even asked me called me into the trailer or wherever he was editing, and just to show me the dailies back then.
Yeah.
And so I saw a few minutes of it, and again without sound, without anything. But he said, Alan, what do you think I could do, to improve what I have? And I said, have the seats facing away from the screen. And he didn't like that comment at all. And as a result, he never called me back. But it showed you how much I didn't know. But a lot of that movie really was made in the editing room, I think. You know what I mean? The way they put it together, the name change. Originally, I think it was Leatherface.
Head cheese or Leatherface.
And a fellow by the name of Warren Scarron, who was the new head of the film commission. He came up with the title, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Absolutely brilliant. That alone, sealed that movie. And so there you have. It comes out, and I think it even beat Bruce Lee's movie, Enter, or something with the dragon.
Yeah.
And beat that. what I say, the real massacre took place after that movie came out because the distributors, unfortunately, were the mafia.
Yes.
Brian was, and so that's a whole other ball game. So here, the movie's making a lot of money, and I think the first check I got, I could go to McDonald's. I said, "What's wrong here?" And so we all got snookered. Toby, all of us. It was a hard lesson, but it's not an uncommon lesson back in that day of
Absolutely.
what happened.
Now, so if the goal is to be like an actor, the film being successful feels like a foot in the right direction, but it doesn't seem like you were really particularly interested in following that goal.
No, never, because I wasn't an actor.
Mm.
And you see some of the reviews. There's good reason. In fact, one guy referred to me as this 30-year-old disco stew looking dude, and I said, "What? What disco?" I didn't realize he was referring to The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Disco stew guy, but it's hilarious. I love
that. That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. The hair, the glasses, and the shirt that I wore, that was my favorite shirt.
Uh-huh.
And I ended up loaning that shirt to Ron Bozeman, who was the production guy, for a faraway shot that they didn't need for me to be in the van at the time. I never got that shirt back, with my favorite shirt. It would have been like the shoes in The Wizard of Oz that Judy Garland wore. And so I hated Ron for 50 years because I didn't have that shirt returned to me. He doesn't know whatever happened to that shirt.
Yeah.
We're all older now, so I let it go, But and a fan by the name of David Munoz found a similar pattern. That's how incredible chainsaw fans are. And he got a bolt of it and sent it to me, and I had a shirt made, and it's similar, and it works. But it was just one of those deals. I don't know why I didn't get that shirt back. It was my favorite shirt.
Well, talking about the fans, you've since 2004 been able to work the convention circuit and get to interact with people. What is, in your opinion, one of the most unique experiences that you've had with a fan from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, and it's still going on. You're right. I had no idea what was going on, and there was a whole the convention circuit, and Gunnar was doing that, and I think Marilyn and Ed Neal.
Mm-hmm.
And then Gunnar came up. He said, "Alan, they want to do a reunion, a chainsaw reunion of the actors and whatnot." And the first one that I did, you're right, was I think 2004, Cinema Wasteland.
Very nice.
And I said, "Gee, I don't know. My background's in psychology, social work. Who am I going to be meeting there? Serial killers? Or wannabes?" And as it turned out, these were the nicest people I could ever imagine. They were just wonderful, and I thought that they saw me as fresh meat, for that. In some ways, it was true. But they were wonderful, and when they love you, and it just opened my eyes, and I wasn't able to do as many as I'd like, but now that I'm older and basically retired,
yeah.
And so wherever I go, I meet the nicest people, fans. But I've signed legs, I've signed breasts, people, you name it, I've done it, so it's always a thrill. Although at a recent convention that I did a couple of years ago, I got a standing ovation when I get killed, so I don't know how to take that,
In horror fandom, that's like a badge of honor, is to get a cool kill in a horror movie. So
in what movie does everybody root for the guy in the wheelchair to get whacked? You know what I mean?
So I am of a differing. I'm of a differing opinion when it comes to the character Franklin. I know that a lot of people, he's like one of the least popular characters. People are always referring to him. He's always on a list of the most annoying characters in a film, and I think it's kind of a double-edged sword, because imagine being a paralyzed person in the 70s in Texas. Not everything is paved. It's a lot of dirt roads. It's hard to get around. He feels like the fifth wheel because everybody's partnered up with people. This is supposed to be him and his sister going to their grandfather's home and like reconnecting, and it isn't any of that. So
it was like that throughout the whole shoot of the movie. He never took that role off, and so we all wanted him to get whacked.
Oh, hold on. You're going to tell me he played Franklin even when he wasn't a...
Exactly. He was, and later on he felt like if he took the change, he wouldn't get him back. So he was like that through the whole movie. So we all hated him.
So did you? When was the first time you actually met him out of the character?
Was at the convention at the Cinema Wasteland in 2004, and I said, "Man, this guy's the nicest guy," which is like how it was. He was the nicest guy, and sadly, all too soon, passed away.
Yeah.
Gunnar. I mean, it's just awful. I mean, we didn't know each other. We got to be really close after the movie was over, and Gunnar stayed with me in Westlake Hills that summer before he moved to Maine, and so we became wonderful friends, and when later on he came down and I had a bed and breakfast in Luling, Texas, and on our way over he was writing Chainsaw Confidential, and he said,
nice.
What do you think your role was in the movie? I said, we were just fodder. We were just there to get killed. Just biding our time until we get whacked, and that's really how it was.
So I want to ask you a question. This might be a little hippy dippy, but I just want to kind of get your feeling on this. Your characters in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you're representing hippie culture, the counterculture at the time.
Right.
Now, that culture inevitably grows up, and they have to become adults, and they have to raise their own children, and they become different than what they were when they were these idealistic kids. And then as adults, they're confronted with these idealistic kids, and they don't see themselves in these kids anymore. Do you think that the ideals of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre work today? Because it's a clash of these warring ideologies, the youth and the established. And it's also an allegorical representation of the Vietnam War, and all of these elements that are there. We're currently in a political landscape that I think this film still is as effective as it was in 1974. But I look at a film like the 2022 Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and there's a lot of pushback from the audience because it's this hipster crowd moving into Texas and basically trying to gentrify Texas. You being a person that lives in Texas, and Texas being slowly turned into a mini California, like you're probably on the side of the family in that film. Am I right? Or am I wrong?
I think so. In fact, in my new movie, The Weed Hacker Massacre, and the tagline for that, and by the way, that comes out October the 17th. And on a multitude, and it's a horror comedy. Yeah. And the tagline is, once you stop laughing, you'll start screaming.
That's awesome.
There's some elements in terms of that it's actually, and the character is a character named Poker Face, and it's almost like with Leatherface, it was almost really like a home invasion.
Yeah.
In some ways, where people started coming into this guy's house. And he's mentally, unstable. He's got a lot of problems and stuff like that. But I've been so removed for a number of years doing other things. In some ways now, we've got a culture where nothing is private.
Yeah,
there's no privacy. Everything is out there. I mean, somebody's videoing or taping or whatnot, and then I feel like in some ways I see kids now, they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to have a conversation. Everybody's looking at their phones. You know what I mean? You sit at a table, you see a whole family, they're all looking at their phones.
And it's a weird disconnect.
So there's no real communication.
Yeah. You, as somebody that worked in psychology, can you break down what you feel the character Leatherface is from a psychological perspective?
Well, I mean, I think there's different, backstories, how he came to be, but, it was, a kid, with some deformities, mental challenges, and, just almost like cast aside, and Gunnar did a brilliant job, playing him, because you had to be really bright to play that character with actually virtually no words. I mean, it just sounds and stuff, guttural sounds, but he conveys a sense, of dread, of fear, all of those things. But, after he whacks me, he goes to the window and it's like he's having second thoughts, what he's done to me. And there's still a little bit of humanity, even in people of the worst kind.
So I looked at that.
Heavy, I want, to get into this heavy psychological stuff of people's minds, but it is what it is.
See, so I looked at that sequence that this was the third person that had entered his house.
Right.
And so it was like the first one, everything's okay. The second one, he's a little bit more frustrated. And then that third time, he's like, what is going on? Why does this keep happening to me? Yeah. And it almost feels like he's being, put upon. And like he doesn't want to do these things, but it just like they keep coming to him, and it's almost like he's obviously snapped. He's carving up humans with a chainsaw. He's hanging them on meat hooks. He's slamming sledgehammers in their head. But it feels like it's somebody that can't process all of these very heavy things that are happening to him.
Yeah.
And in your experience working in that field, is there anything that you think you've been able to take away from the work that you did working on film and apply towards your actual career?
Not really. That's so deep. I mean, I did social work for about 10 years, but actually I worked with kids back then that were, socially or considered mentally retarded back then. And I started a program called a Big Buddy program, kind of like a Big Brother program.
Yeah.
Kids, and I had some, wonderful volunteers, but you can see what one-on-one communication can turn somebody's life around, and sadly, I think now we're so divided and we're getting even more polarized.
Yeah.
And there's wonderful people. When you meet people one-on-one and you don't get into politics, people are kind. They're terrific people. They'll go out of their way. But we're into a divide and conquer type of situation, and it's stunning and it's terrible.
Yeah. But to not end on kind of a down note, let's talk about your future. Please tell people about the movie that you got coming out.
Well, actually, this is like a renaissance for me. A few years ago, we had an ice storm here in Austin, and we lost power. I'm living in my kitchen, with no heat and whatnot, and I got contacted to do the voiceover for the movie Cannibal Comedian.
Oh yeah, nice.
Checked out now, and I ended up doing the front part, and I recommended Ed Neal, who's the hitchhiker, to do at the end, and that movie's out now, and that's a comedy's getting a lot of play and whatnot. So
that's on Screambox, right?
Yeah. And then I'm in a movie called My Dinner with Leatherface, and that's a documentary. I'm in that, and now to top it off comes the Weed Hacker Massacre, which premieres October the 17th, and there'll be a watch party here in Austin, and there's going to be some fun contests that I'm going to have. One is going to be, if you'd like to have dinner with Chainsaw Jerry, my other, please, write in and let us know why you want to have dinner with Chainsaw Jerry. And first prize will be a dinner with Chainsaw Jerry in his van. Have a chainsaw van down by the river. So that'll be first prize. Second prize will be 2 dinners with Chainsaw Jerry in his van down by the river. And if they'll just send their entry along with a picture of their Captain Midnight mug or any insignia that has Ovaltine on it.
Yes, drink more Ovaltine. It's amazing. But where can people find you in the world of social media?
I'm on Instagram, which I think we'll be kicking off. I'll be on TikTok fairly soon, and so that's all new. I think people before used to follow me at the bulletin board at Central Market. That's how you could stay in touch with me. But anyway, and they can also go to my website, which is chainsawjerry.com, and they can get photos. I got photos from the movies and T-shirts, and I got my own bobblehead, Chainsaw Jerry bobblehead. That's also, I think, it's in the Bobblehead Hall of Fame in Milwaukee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then I even have my own Chainsaw Jerry's Killer Beef Jerky, and on the blade it says "We were the meats." So nice. It's all the truth. It's all the truth.
That's fantastic, man. If you guys are here just because of Alan and you've enjoyed the conversation, first of all, I don't blame you for being here for Alan. Second of all, thank you for enjoying the conversation. But you want to find out more about us, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can start by liking us on Facebook, facebook.com/CreaturePod, by following us all over in social media, just by looking for @CreaturePod. So that's TikTok, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, all of the things. We're on all of those things, and we want to hear more from you. We want to hear what you thought about this conversation. By all means, interact, engage. And I just want to say before I get out of here, thank you so much to Alan for being on the show. This is a huge honor for me. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my all-time favorite films. I have Leatherface tattooed on my arm. It's a huge honor to have you on, and I just wanted to thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. But that is going to do it for us, you guys. So for Alan Danziger and for myself, again, my name is Chunky. This has been another episode of the Creature Features Podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, listen, someone you trust.